Welcome to Promoted. I am your host, Felicity Fury, CEO of We Aspire, and I'm joined by the incredible Renee Wooten, speaker, engineer, and now global executive at LanzaJet. How exciting, Renee. So good to see you. Just checking in. I'm going to do a check-in word. I'm feeling awesome and excited. Well, that was 2 words this morning. How are you feeling checking in?
Good morning. It's so great to see you as always. How am I feeling? Oh my gosh, I'm just like really pumped. This year is like crazy, but I'm also kind of tired. So my final word will be pumped. I love everything that's going on. I love where we're at with the podcast. It's been such a dream of a year, to be honest.
So good. And Renee, of course, we are both in Australia. We are on different country today. I'd love to hear your acknowledgement. I cannot wait for this. I'm so pumped about this.
Thanks, Felicity. Nagagbi Bagilanjanur, Naigang Renee Wooten, Gadagal Guli, Naranang Nalamanyang, Nai, Gama Maringai, Nalawalanga. Greetings and how are you all? My name is Renee Wooten. I acknowledge that I am gathered on Jayabal country, and I'm speaking to you in Dharawal. First Nations people have had the oldest continuing cultures in the world, and it's fitting to reflect on the thousands of generations of traditional knowledges that First Nations people hold and generously share. So I acknowledge the diversity of First Nations culture, languages and practices across our country, and their continuing custodianship and care of the country that we work, live and fly on. Felicity, where are you calling in from today?
Wanya, Renee, I'm on Gubby Gubby country, the beautiful Sunshine Coast. I'm so grateful that the people who've been taking care of this land for tens of thousands of years have done that. So we get to enjoy the beautiful region of the Sunshine Coast, Mount Coolum, Mount Ninderee, the Glasshouse Mountains, all of the incredible natural beauty. And that is why we live here. Thank you for that beautiful acknowledgement of country, Renee. Look forward to more of that on the podcast. We're going to be developing something extra special just for this podcast. And Renee, I'm hoping you can bring some more of that language in, because I love learning words like wanya, which means hello and welcome in Gubby Gubby language. Oh my gosh, juicy episode today. I can't wait to deep dive on this one. Renee, congratulations. Recently, you have been named Boss Young Executive of the Year. Congratulations. That is huge. Today, we're going to dive into what that was like for you, all about the process and your experience. So was it, were you surprised? Was this like oh my gosh, bucket list item ticked when you were awarded this? How did it feel for you?
To be honest, so first of all, thank you so much. And to be honest, it has been a bit of a shock. And I think I've been telling people on the podcast, our listeners this year, that this year has just been phenomenal. And I feel like I've really stepped into understanding myself so well and understanding what makes me a good leader in the corporate space, or what makes me stand out. And maybe some people can't relate to that. Maybe there's an assumption that, we're just successful people and we keep being successful, but it certainly wasn't always the case. For me, I grew up in farming country. I never had any academic influences in my life. First in my family to go to university, first in my family to have an aviation career. So all of this, every time I get some sort of acknowledgement or recognition, it kind of blows my mind. And I'm like, how did that happen? And why was I selected? And, what makes me get recognized in this environment or in these corporate spaces? And so, yeah, I think the process for the Boss Young Executives Award, they select 6 people every year to showcase across the Australian Financial Review Boss Young Executives column. And the process was you apply, you had to answer a series of questions around your leadership and challenging projects and, developing certain skills. And then they assess those and invite 10 people to come forward and participate in a leadership simulation, which is run by DDI, a global leadership company. So they do that in partnership with the AFR. And once you finish the simulation, you then sit a panel interview and give a visionary speech. And after they have all of that data and information, they then pick 6 people out of the top 10 invited to participate in that. Now, when I walked into this room and first of all got acknowledged as the top 10, I was like, oh my God, how did that happen? And I am so thrilled and grateful to be sitting in this room because I think, Felicity, you can appreciate this too. Regardless of whether you win an award like this, the networking and the people you get exposure to and the things that you learn, and just even the opportunity to go, holy dooly, like I'm in the top 10 in Australia this year. And what does it mean to be sitting in that room? Like, how did I get there, and what makes me worthy to be sitting in that room? So, um, I had an opportunity to kind of reflect on, wow, I made it this far, and that's exceptional, and I'm so grateful. And then, okay, now I have to sit through a simulation and do this panel interview, um, and I'll be really intrigued to see what the outcome is. I think that was kind of my mentality going into it. And, when we got invited into the room with the top 10, it was a virtual room. We're calling from all over Australia. There's people in incredibly different and diverse industries. None of us were in the same industry. Um, and just to hear people's stories, I would say everyone in that room was very humble, very down to earth. I love that it's so unassuming that you've got such exceptional talent, and people wouldn't really profess that or be clear about that. It's like everyone was equally surprised to be sitting in that room, which I think is a really beautiful trait and quality. And so we kind of went through the process of the simulation on the day that we all got to meet virtually. It was a 7-hour slot, and we had 6 hours and 17 minutes of testing in that 7-hour slot. And on top of that, we had a 20-minute call that we had to fit into that. So you can imagine I had about 20 minutes to run to the bathroom, run lunch, and continue the next assessment. It was pretty challenging. The expectation was that you come in and perform a director role for a nanotechnology company and answer emails and calls based on requests from very junior people through to your direct reports through to the CEO of the company and the board. So, it was incredible. It was very challenging. It was an exhausting day. I know we switched on from like 9 a.m. in the morning. I think we finished just before 5 p.m. that afternoon. So, it was really back to back. I think at the end of it, I had to do a vision speech, and then fast forward a week, I sat my panel interview, and again, the judges were phenomenal. Like, just the board, a non-executive director, a OAM holder, like all of these people had just the most exceptional credentials. So to sit in a room with them and be told, you're in the top 10, well done, congratulations, these are things to recognize about you. This is why you're sitting in this room. Now tell us about yourself. Sometimes you can go through some of these processes and just absolutely bomb out. Like something doesn't work out, end up getting you.
Never. That would happen. Never happen to you. No. Come out. You'd be smashing it every single time.
Not at all. I think there's moments in life where you go, God, I really could have done better, or I wasn't my best self today, or I wasn't feeling really well. So, and that's obviously going to come off in these sorts of experiences. And I have to say, looking back, I think I had 3, 4 different touch points throughout the process, and each of them just went exceptionally well. And it's kind of a very affirming feeling to be like, wow, I really put my best foot forward in every single way in this. And then, I got the call while I was in Chicago, actually, when I was onboarding in my new job, saying, congratulations, you're a boss young executive for this year, you got in the top 6. And I was like, that's cool. So, it's been a dream come true, to be honest. And I say that not because I expected to get this opportunity, not because I knew what was coming ahead, but it's not until you win something or get recognized in this way that then you can go, wow, this is actually pretty phenomenal, and it's going to shape a lot of opportunity even to come over the next year. I say that because, again, I have expanded my network. I've had the opportunity to understand my leadership style even more, and get feedback on why I was selected. And so it's been a phenomenal experience.
I think it's great getting that independent feedback, because often I feel, certainly, if you've got really great mentors, they're like, you're doing great. And they go, sometimes they go, oh, they're just saying that because they're being nice. But they're executives, a lot of them. So I'm clear that they would be direct with me around what's working, what's not working. But it's great to get that independent recognition from someone who, really doesn't know you from a bar of soap. And that application process I find powerful every single time. I've actually just applied for a bunch of awards myself. So I will be fully, open around which ones we do and don't get, by the way, because certainly the ones I've applied for, there's also, I think, more that I haven't received as well. And it's been such a helpful process. I think as you go and develop throughout your life, it's probably been about 4 years since I've applied for an award. And so it's really had me recognize, even in this last short period of time, the last 2 to 4 years, what I've accomplished as well. So they're great reflection points to take stock of where you're at and then get that independent perspective. Perspective is probably a really strong word that comes to mind when you're meeting with the judges, all those different people that you're interacting with, the journalists from the Australian Financial Review, hearing your story. You go, oh, okay, there's a little extra piece here that I didn't have before. What's something that has surprised you about yourself as part of this process, specifically with the Boss Young Executive Award?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think, after sitting the simulation and doing the panel interview, what they do is they then offer an hour and a half debrief session on your qualities and your strengths and areas of development. So you get this really great report. It was like a 20-page report on all of my skills. And on page 4, still can visualize it in the summary of where you sat across the board. And so they indicate strong, moderate, and then low in terms of where you sat for each of the key skills that they. And I looked at this page, and I think there was roughly, let's say, 12 key skills that they assess against. And I think 8 of them were all strong, and then there was 4 that were in the moderate area. So naturally, you jump straight to, okay, why did I only get moderate? But I think what was really nice is where I was strong, it was like the top skills, or what they assess for us throughout this entire process, is your community contribution, your leadership capability, and then your levels of empathy for people as well. So in the empathy and leadership area, I was really strong. So that was really, really cool to see. And then the final piece was around like my business skills. And I think that I was moderate in those areas actually, because that's where I've had like, actually, I don't know if I can say this, but maybe the least amount of experience in a way. So I think the thing that surprised me around my skills and my results was that I think I'm naturally an empathetic person, and I love leading teams. I love understanding people and trying to help them grow. And so my empathy results were really strong. My leadership was really strong, but then my business skills was where I needed to kind of grow. So it was a nice reflection, because a lot of the things that they assessed against, I've only done once or twice in my career ever. So it was like entrepreneurial skills, business savvy skills, communication, and customer skills. And like when you read through the description of each of them, I was like, oh, interesting. I've only ever done that once, or I've only ever done that twice in life. So the physical, like the hard skills that you gain through experience in the job, were the things that I kind of need to continue to work on to grow out. So it was kind of really reaffirming to be like, oh, it's so interesting that they even assess like empathetic skills, because to me, that has always felt foundational and natural and something that I do quite easily. So then to see that it's actually an assessed skill, I was like, oh, so I don't need to really work on that, because I naturally do those things. I naturally do those things. Whereas other people perhaps would have got different results and realize, oh, I need to work on how do I lead people better, for example. And I think like no matter what, there's always room to improve. But yeah, I think it's quite an interesting observation, I suppose, to have those reflected back. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my report somewhere, because I've also been awarded as a Boss Young Executive way back in 2016, which seems like a lifetime ago. And I can't believe I even made the list back when I was 29 and did not have the experience that I've got today. And that report was so helpful. And one thing that really surprised me that still I get reminded of frequently was that one of the skills is around the entrepreneurial piece. And at the time, I'd started multiple businesses and started charity when I was 25. And I thought, oh, my entrepreneurial skill is actually quite low. And that surprised me. And I asked them about that. They said you could improve on this area. Unlike you, Renee, I did not have, I think, too strong out of the entire thing. Most of mine were low or moderate. So I wasn't like, what's this one here? I was like, oh, I've got one or two strengths. I wonder what these are. So I'd love to do it again to find out where I sit now and how much I've changed. But the entrepreneurial one was interesting because I related to myself as like a bit of an identity of I am entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And then in the context of the assessment, they said, oh, actually, you can't, your score was quite low. So I pressed further and I said, well, what would it look like if I had done well in the entrepreneurial category? And they said something along the lines of, if you had thought of in the strategic piece of the day, buying your competitor who was actually slightly bigger than the organization that we were role playing. And I went, wow, I've never thought to do that. And they went, exactly. So it's kind of these like big picture, super out there creative ideas. And there was interestingly a lot of things that a typical engineer would be really great at around risk assessments and evaluating things. That was a really helpful moment for me because I hadn't had anyone say that to me. Like if you look at my CV, you'd be like, oh, Felicity entrepreneurial, but in that particular way. And it's really helped me think more creatively and question myself of, oh, that's right, I can improve this skill. So that's really helped me. And looking back, Renee, on the whole process, if you had to do it again, would there be anything that you would do differently, knowing what you know now, having done it?
Oh, it's a good question, but I don't think so. I think that, it's interesting. After we finished the simulation, we regathered as a group on the same day, and we discussed like what people found hard or easy about it, and even just hearing what people struggle with. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I didn't really struggle with that. I found that quite easy, or even just thinking about the way people solved problems. I think what was really nice is even though everybody goes through the same simulation, the diversity in responses is significant. So, you can be a leader in so many different ways. And so it's not about being more like somebody else or trying to, be the perfect leader in every form, because nobody is. It's more about recognizing, hey, you've missed, similar to what you've just kind of reflected back, you've missed this small little piece, which could unlock huge value for you. So have to think about a problem in a different way. And even when you solve a problem, not thinking about a problem independently, it's really about how do you work with your key stakeholders, or even go and speak to people that are outside of your circle to make sure you're thinking about a problem in all forms. So, thinking back to the responses and the feedback I got, I think based on where I am in my career, I honestly did the best job that I could do with the skills and the experience that I have today. And I can't actually see myself being able to do any better than that. And some of the feedback was, in the customer piece, thinking about how to meet the customer needs. I think one of the pieces of feedback was, if a customer is similar to you, you have a tendency to be able to respond and give them clear feedback and communicate and ask for what they need. But if it's different to you, you don't dig deep enough, or you don't give people the opportunity to share more about themselves or build more of a relationship with them to the point where they feel safe in that conversation to then be able to share their needs with you. Which was a really interesting piece of feedback for me, because I know that in my previous job, I had two very different people reporting into me. And the one that I found really easy to work with was the guy that had very similar thinking and pragmatism and problem solving skills. And then the person that I struggled to lead as well was, somebody who had really strong skills in areas where I didn't have a strong skill. So I found it really challenging to understand what they needed and build a really trusting relationship with them. So again, I think actually it called out exactly what I knew needed to be worked on, which was how do you create a safe space for diverse people? How do you be understanding? How do you slow down and put on the brakes so that different people with different ways of communicating have the time to build a relationship with you rather than working at pace? And I find it interesting too, because our whole environment around us, particularly in the corporate space, is get it done now. So it's really hard to balance the taking time to build trust and then also deliver within the right time. And so So interesting. I learned a lot about myself. Yeah, and I'm not sure that I could have done any better than I did. So
Awesome. Good for you. That's so great. I love it. And why not? That's awesome that you put your best foot forward and it clearly paid off with something like this.
yeah,
I think it's one thing to apply for an award and get it. I think the other piece is how can you best take advantage of it? And that's certainly a mindset that I bring into everything, whether it's a training session that I've done. For example, a couple of weeks ago, I went and did some training myself, which is something I think is fundamental to myself and my husband Michael running this business. We're like, how do we be the best we can be? So we're constantly training and developing ourselves, whether that's reading books or even applying for awards or going to training programs. And in the training session I was in, there was something that really didn't like, I didn't quite love how things were being presented. And, you can sit there and go, oh, okay, this is like really frustrating and be really passive or go, okay, it's not quite working for me, but I'm really clear why I'm here and what I want to get out of it. How do I take advantage of this situation? Now, not saying the boss awards or anything were like that, but I think it's one thing to go, oh, great, I got an award. Cool. How could someone best take advantage of something like this? And it could be from all of the different awards that you've received, Renee. What would be your advice around that?
yeah. So I always say that when you have a goal, you need people around you that have either achieved similar things or know people that are going to help you get to where you want to go. And sometimes it's not as clear as that. Sometimes you walk in a room and you don't know who you're surrounded by. So it's always, I think the first thing is when you're surrounded by new people, understanding who they are, what their life experience is, and then how they've gotten to where they are, for instance.
Mm,
And that can be really powerful because during that storytelling, then they can turn around and go, you can turn around, sorry, and go, wow, they've done all these other things in their lives, and I've always wanted to do that one thing. So now you hone the conversation and be like, wow, tell me more about this thing. I'm interested in trying to pursue something similar to that. So it's, first of all, really truly listening, actively listening. And if you want to come off genuine and authentic, you need to be able to actually give people the time of day to tell them about themselves. And then the beautiful thing out of that is you can learn something. And then if you connect, then you've got potentially a mentor or somebody you can turn to for support or ask questions of in the future. And I think that that's a really undervalued or unseen,
untapped.
untapped opportunity is to a room and build your network because I think that your network is your net worth, as the saying goes. So how do you unlock more opportunities for yourself? How do you learn lessons quicker? How do you build skills quicker? It's generally through coaching. It's generally through meeting people that have done something similar. And I kind of like coming back to the concept of, I've got this great corporate career, but one day I have this goal of becoming an astronaut. And so I know I need to start building my network of people that have explored a career in space, have applied for the astronaut program, have gone on and actually succeeded in their endeavors. So, when I walk into a room, whilst in this moment I might be fixated on, okay, now I want to grow my network in these ways. At the same time, I know I still need to develop my skills today in XYZ way. I still know that I want to lead aviation corporate business. So how can I learn from the incredible level of talent that are in the room who all specialize in something completely different? So there's endless opportunities to learn. So that's one huge benefit of winning an award or being considered for an award. You meet people. And I think, let's say I didn't get it, I would have then just met 10 extra people within the awards process. Perhaps the next step I would have taken was starting a WhatsApp group and trying to get all of their details so that maybe next year I could reapply and understand what was so incredible about these human beings and why did they get selected, so that I can then start honing or having conversations with people that are considered at that level.
Awesome.
And winning the award, we had an awards ceremony a week after we got the news, and we walked into the room, and again, the judges were in the room, the alumni from last year were in the room, and then the opportunity to meet the executive sponsors for each of the people selected, the winners for this year as well. The conversations went from, where did you grow up and, what's your story, through to, hey, I have just landed a new job and we're working in sustainable aviation fuel, and I hear your company wants to make investments in that. So, I teed up conversations about my new job and then also whilst in that room,
Mm.
and also learnt from Bonnie Boozman, who's one of the judges, that I should get into golf and start playing golf. Was that a lot of decisions are made out on the golfing field, and I'm like, Bonnie, like you just have a queen in any decision making rooms in Australia where golf is the solution. And she was like, Renee, it's actually like if you go and play a game of golf with business friends, that's where business partnerships are formed and created and made. And I was like, right, okay, well, Bonnie, next time we're in the Gold Coast, all kind of golf we're doing. It's like the most unexpected and wildest things you'll learn. And they come from putting yourself in a position to learn from other people.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So great, Renee. It's been awesome to deep dive with you on the debrief from the Boss Young Exec Awards. Hopefully, it's inspired some people listening to apply for an award, put yourself out there, and get the confidence to do something like this. Renee, really appreciate you taking us behind the scenes, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Felicity. And as always, we have exceptional young leaders who are listening today and on their own journeys of leadership. So would highly encourage you in the future to apply for the Boss Young Executives and reach out to Felicity and I, because we've done the process. We see the value in it, and we want to make sure that each of you have the opportunity to learn from that. So
Totally.
you, as always, and you are listening to the Promoted Podcast.